All right, good morning. It is 10 a.m. here in beautiful Denver, Colorado, Mountain Standard Time. I know we have people joining us from all over the country, and we're super excited that you are going to be able to share this next hour with us, where we're going to be taking a deep dive into how to create a powerful buyer program. So I'm excited about today. I think we're going to have a lot of fun. As always, I ask everyone to do a couple of things. Number one, take notes. There's going to be a lot of information here. My goal and strategy for today is to have you leave with a buyer program that is going to not only justify your compensation, but increase your compensation for every buyer you work with. So we're going to create a play here and a strategy that is going to give you more value. Make sure that in this ever-changing market, we are always able to go, look, any buyer on earth would be insane not to utilize me because of everything I do in this process. Sometimes a lot of you out there do all of this amazing activities to help every buyer, but it's not communicated. And when it's not communicated correctly, then you're not able to justify that value and make sure that you're receiving the compensation for all of that hard work. So I'm here to help. I'm here to make sure that that doesn't happen, and we're going to have a blast. So let's jump in. As we said, first and foremost, I want to make sure that you're going to learn how to be indispensable in the eyes of every buyer and seller, right? That word I want you to write down. I had to Google it to figure out the true definition of it. And indispensable means something that someone cannot live without. So I really want to think about that when I'm working with a buyer. It's like, you cannot live without me, and you need me to be able to have the best possible experience on earth. All right. So also, I probably should have started with making sure that in the chat box, right, use the questions, ask questions. I'm going to stop and have breaks in here when we have questions. So we'll make sure that we address them all as best we can, because there's going to be a lot of technical pieces in here that you're going to need to understand at a high level. So, all right. So we're getting into it. I should introduce myself. My name is Brendan Bartic. So I am a national sales trainer. I am a Capricorn. I am also a terrible karaoke singer. But what I'm most proud of is the work that I do with disadvantaged youth. So I'm also president of Third Way Center, of their board of directors. And we have 5 residential group homes that serves almost 200 at-risk youths every single year, helping them travel through the judicial system and become active and successful adults. So I'm ready to rock. If you're your first time joining us, we're going to have some fun. We have to go through the legal issues first. So, of course, I want to warn you about the TCPA guidelines. Make sure that everything that we're going to be talking about today, right, you honor the do not call list, you do all the right things. Everything I'm going to talk to you about today, I want to make sure that you go through with your managing broker. A lot of what I'm going to talk about is a lot of entertainment and education. So I don't want anyone to end up in jail by any measure. So make sure that we're clear that you know what you need to do. All right. So let's start with first talking about why build a buyer presentation program. All right. Now, that word in itself, presentation/program, what I want you to start changing your mindset on is you usually used to hear this old school word of I do a buyer consultation. And I go in and I pitch the buyer, or I either bring them into the office or I meet them at a Starbucks, and I talk them and I say, here's what I do and here's how the process works and all of this. And then I hopefully get a buyer agency agreement signed. What I'm hoping today is that you change that mindset and start thinking about, I have a buyer program, a buyer strategy that helps the buyer, and I'm going to talk about the buyer's problems here in a second, that solves the buyer's problems. So if you had to think right now and you had to write down on a piece of paper, what problems do most buyers face in the buyer process? What irritates a buyer? What is those frustration points? Your market might be different than my market. Your area might be different than someone else's area. So we did the same thing when we created our listing program, right? So we have a program called Sold in 65, and we went to the whiteboard and we said, what are all of the issues that sellers are facing right now that makes selling a home suck, right? That makes it just a terrible, boring, not boring, terrible, painful experience. Well, probably boring too. So think about that. What in the buyer side are some of those problems? Now, we can't solve every single buyer problem on earth. I wish that we could. I wish that we had that capacity and that power. But what we can do is we can isolate for you two or three that you feel are the major issues with the home buying process. And then you create a powerful program that solves those issues. And that's what we're going to do today. And then when you do that, you're going to get more money, more value, more compensation because you're going to be providing more value. So remember, when we make ourselves indispensable, right, the buyer and or seller will be happy to pay us. That's what we really need to focus on, is making sure that we are completely going to be dependent upon what value we provide, and that's how much we're going to get paid, especially as we move forward into these new waters. Now, we have to decide, how do we become indispensable? All right, so let's jump in. First, we need to understand the buyer's problems. Now, we were just talking about, you're probably putting a little list there, right, as you were going through. I want you to think about every day that you're the superhero of real estate that woke up and came and flew from planet whatever Superman came from, and you landed on this earth simply to save buyers and make them have the greatest experience on earth. When you start to have that kind of mindset, things start to change in how you look at yourself. Instead of going, hey, I open up doors for a living and I show people houses and I walk them through and blah, blah, blah. No, right? That's not somebody I'm going to pay a lot of money to. I could care less if you could do that. Right now, there's competitors out there that are making their job every day to make sure that they can replace you so that you don't have that ability, right? They're working on going, why don't I just make that piece obsolete so that we can make money in our company? So we've got to be the superhero. All right, so let's start with problem number one. Buyers are stuck in a hope and wait strategy. So think about this. Buyers are stuck in a hope and wait strategy, meaning that when you start working with them, generally they face a series of problems, right? We set the client up on a search and we hope they find a property they like. Then we try and find a time to go see the property and hope they want to make an offer. And then if they don't make an offer, we do it all over again. So what I want to make sure we get across today is, if one of the problems that I want to solve in our program when we work with our buyers on our team is, I don't want them to have a hope and wait strategy. I don't want the buyer to feel like, well, man, I'm basically doing all the work here. This person just opens the door when I call them and say, I want to see this house. That sucks. That's not what we want to do. All right. So we're going to make sure that you are not one of those types of agents. Okay. So the second problem we identified in our program is buyers are scared to purchase houses because they're going to have inspection items that they're going to get on the hook for after they buy the home if the seller's not willing to address them. So you're out there, you're showing a buyer and you're working with them and you're taking them through all of these beautiful properties, but some of them are old. Some of them have a 10-year hot water heater. The furnace is on its last leg. All of these things depending on your location. Well, what if you could solve that problem on the front side for any buyer you worked with? And some of you are already doing this now, and go, look, I'm going to solve those issues for you so you don't have to worry about it, at least for the next 12 months. I'm going to increase this level of value by providing you with a home warranty program. We're going to talk about this so that every single person is protected. Number one strategy was a hope and wait strategy. I see that question there, Bridget. So the hope and wait, meaning that people are just hoping that the property hits the market and waiting to your buyer to call you to show it, right? When we interviewed a bunch of buyers, we interviewed a bunch of buyers. When we talked to buyers, that's what they complained about the most. They go, I just felt like my agent was getting paid a lot of money and I was doing all of the work and I already found the house. They just opened the door for me. And yeah, they wrote a contract for me, but I could have had a lawyer do that, or I could have blah, 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 right? And then, like we said, inspection cost. All right. So what you want to do is create a program that solves these problems and a lot of the other ones. And we're going to talk about those here in a moment. We call ours our buy with confidence. You can call yours whatever the heck you want, right? You can build this out as special as you want. You can call it Jackie's magical buyer system. You can call it whatever makes you happy. But you got to have a program, and you want to sell the program and not yourself. That's a big piece of this. Is I want to make sure you're selling the program and not yourself. Have the buyers buy into the strategy, not your resume. Okay. So to solve these problems, the first solution that we have, and we're explaining this to a buyer. So imagine that this is a PowerPoint presentation. Now, yours wouldn't have the QR code on here. I'm going to get to our slides here. This is not part of our presentation. This is for instruction right here. But you're going to have a complete buyer profile. So you can download this with the QR code, make sure that you have the one that we utilize. And you got to like, oh, I know what to do and all this. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. There's a lot of things on here that I find that agents skip all the time. So they don't have a real clear understanding of exactly what their buyer wants. And then they can't leverage that profile to go out into the market and get off-market properties, get REO properties, bank-owned short sales, FSBOs to reach out to them because you have a buyer package. The buyer is powerful, right? So make sure you have their profile down and perfect. Now, the strategy that I want to make sure that you're clear on delivering is if you want to really have value in this business, we have what we call our inventory creation process, our ICP process. Okay. So with our ICP process, when I work with a buyer, I go, John, Susie, in our strategy, most agents wait for you to find a property online and then they click a showing and then they go take you to show it with everyone else. And then you're going to have to probably be in multiple offer situations depending on the market and then, deal with all of this. I'm going to make sure that you have every property available on earth that fits your profile so that hopefully you don't have to compete. If you do, that's still okay. Whether you compete or not, you're not getting the leftovers that everyone else is seeing. And I take pride in providing all of these other properties. Now, this is self-serving as well because you're also going to either double end a lot of these deals or create future listing opportunities. So once I have that profile, the first thing I'm going to do is call the neighborhood, of course, being TCPA compliant, right? I'm going to do a radius search using whatever tech that you want to use, right? We use Mojo dialers. You can use Vulcan 7, the Red X, Land Voice, whatever it is. I'm going to have this profile, and then I'm going to reach out to people that are not on the do not call list and let them know that I have an amazing client that is looking for a property in said area. Are you interested in selling? That's what I'm going to do. Then the second check that I'm going to do, John and Susie, is I'm going to call all the expired listings in the trailing 12 months. These are properties that came off the market for some sort of reason. And I'm going to reach out to those agents. Or first, I'm going to try to reach out to the seller directly if I can find their contact information. Remember, there's so many properties out there. You have this hidden inventory of sellers that are sitting out there right now that were on the market, then came off the market, haven't gone back on yet, and your buyers don't know that those properties are available. Now, you can either try to find that seller's information or knock on their door and introduce yourself, or you can reach out to the previous agent if you can't get the contact info and say, hey, are your sellers, still interested in selling? I have a great fit for this great buyer that would be a great fit for that property, right? Then, of course, you door knock the neighborhood. Again, self-serving in two ways. You're going to get listings from this, all of this, but you have your buyer profile and you're going to have your scripting down to be like, I'm working with this amazing couple. They're unbelievable. I was just coming through the neighborhood to see if you might have any interest in selling or know anybody that might. I really want to get my buyers into this area. And now you're going to hear, this is where I want you to stop. You're going, then a lot of the people are going to be like, well, did you see the house for sale down the street? Yes, I did see that property. Unfortunately, it's not the right fit for them. We looked at all the details of it and whatever you need to say. It had a main floor master. It backed up to power lines, whatever it is. They just felt that it wasn't the right fit for their family. So, and then that seller at the door is going to say, well, I have no interest in selling right now. And then you're immediately going to go, Well, I can appreciate that. But if you were to move, because I do have buyers for this area all the time, where would you go next? And when would that be? And they'll stand there at the door and they're like, I don't know, maybe like in a year or two, like my son's gonna be, finishing high school or whatever it is. And you go, oh my gosh, that's exciting. Okay, and where do you want to go? Arizona. Oh my gosh, Arizona. And you just make a conversation in a relationship. Now, we have an entire conversation book that gives you all of these conversations that you can work through. We just call them checkdowns. Now, if you're going to go door knocking and you're going to knock on the door and just go, hey, I've got a buyer for your area. And then all of a sudden they go, I'm not interested in selling. You go, okay, thanks a lot. Goodbye. Have a good day. You're wasting your time. Your goal is to have a status of every single person in that neighborhood that answers the door on when they're going to sell. And then your only other problem that you have to solve is how you're going to become the agent to do it. And we have a whole nother series that talks about how to do all of that. Okay. But at the same time, you're serving your buyer as well. You are going to meet people that are ready to sell and you're going to match them up with your buyer. It's going to be fantastic. All right, then you can send out the golden letters. So John and Susie, what I also do and show them a sample of your letter. If you don't know what golden letters are, again, you can join us for our future courses, but with the golden letter, right, this is a simple play. Show them a letter that you actually send to the neighborhood, letting them know that you're working with an amazing buyer and to have sellers reach out to you. Your buyer's going to go, wow, you do all of that? I go, absolutely. I'm going to find you the best house on earth. I will leave no stone unturned. Right? And then next, I'm going to package my buyer's story and I'm going to post that on all my social media outlets. So John and Susie, everyone is going to know on earth that you're looking for this type of property on all of my social media. And then if you're on a team, they're going to share it on their social media. It's going to be fantastic. And then, of course, I work at a large real estate office if you do, and I'm going to share it at our weekly meeting, let everybody know that I have this amazing buyer, and then they're going to have pocket sellers that are interested in actually being a match for you. So all of these things I'm going to be doing. I'd love for you to think for a second and go ahead and put it in the chat boxes. I know we have a lot of talent out there that's joining us. What else could you do to find off-market properties? Did I miss anything on here, right? So give that a thought. Right? What else could you do to find buyers? I call this house hunting instead of house waiting. That's where value comes into play. All right. So taking a look at FSBOs, investors. Ooh, I love it. I love it. I love it. There you go. Right. We're going to talk about that. You're leading me into my next slide. I love that. Right. Yeah. FRBOs. I love that. Right. So if you're not familiar with what an FRBO is, this is people that currently are looking for a tenant for their house, right? They're a landlord, and you could call them up and say, hey, I noticed that you're wanting to rent your property, but I have a buyer right now, a couple that I'm working with, or a young, whoever it is, whatever your buyer story is that you got from your profile, right? All that. Empty nesters. I love that, Stacy. Absolutely. Right. So I'm going to be able to frame that conversation with that landlord. And then they might say, no, I'm just really interested in renting it. And we have a whole conversation about the checkdowns on how to go through that. Remember, every tenant occupied or tenant owned property on earth is going to sell at some point. It's not if, it's when. It's the first time that tenant starts a fire in their kitchen. It's the third time that they get a letter from the neighbor saying that the tenants haven't done what they're supposed to with the yard and have violated the HOA agreement. It's the fifth time that their tenant's late on their rent because they just felt like being late because they don't care. I love that. FRBOs, killing it. Buyer seller seminar, Patrick, absolutely. Yeah, right. Get all these people in there. So there's a lot of ways to generate. Now, you already got me. Some of you already had, right? Solution number 3, our distressed seller program. Do you hear how all of these things are a program or a strategy? Remember how I was saying, if you want to define your value, come up with cool names that make it sound important, right? That's what we're trying to do. Everything is a program, a strategy. Usually it's an acronym, right? This is our DSP program. They don't, they're like DSP. I was like, yeah, you don't have DSP. You really need to have this. You might not make it without the DSP program, right? So have fun with creating all of these things or just steal ours. And I love you. I got you. Okay. So connect with buyers and sellers who need to sell, including sellers on the NED list. So the notice of elective demand. You can get this list from title companies or from data providers like RedX, Mojo, Vulcan 7, whatever it might be. Then there's also people that are these are people that are 90 days past due on their mortgage. You can use FSBOs and pre-foreclosure information on Zillow. So you can go to Zillow right now, pull all the pre-foreclosures, all the Zillows. With a little legwork, you can find every phone number for them, or go to the door and say, hey, you don't even have to knock on the door and be like, hey, I noticed that you haven't paid your mortgage in 3 months and you guys are probably going to lose your house. That would not be the conversation you'd want to use. You would just act like you had no idea and just knock on their door and be like, hey, I have a buyer for your property, right? That's it. And they might be like, oh, wow, this is heaven today that someone's showing up so I don't have to go into foreclosure. We're going to see that last one, that pre-foreclosure, start happening more and more and more. We already have. Okay. All right. And then solution number 4, our IPP, inspection protection plan, right? So with every buyer that we work with, right, we are going to have an inspection protection program, right? So when you work with me, Susie and John, you're going to be fully protected for the next 12 months on all major appliances, fixtures. Now, in your package, you could have a copy of the home warranty. We happen to use 210 home warranty and have been very pleased with that relationship. We also use this for our listing program, and we protect every single one. Now, you're going, but Brendan, that's going to cost me money. No, you're going to build that into your value, into your compensation amount that you're going to receive, your success fee, as we call it. Okay. Don't get stuck in all of this being like, I can only get paid what the seller's willing to pay me. Those days are long gone. Those days never existed. But now we got to be very clear that we set the value for the value we provide. We've always done this, right? As all I know all of you have on great agents on here, right? But we just want to make sure we're super clear about this all the time. All right. So think about how you could play around with this, which program you're going to offer, how you could build all of the great magic around it. Are you going to do this in a PowerPoint presentation when you meet with your buyers? Or are you going to have a printed, beautiful brochure? I like having both, right? It depends on which client I'm meeting with, all of these fun things. Then, of course, you have your transaction assurance team. Does that just sound cool? Basically, you got a TC. But your transaction assurance team sounds impressive. So John and Susie, you're going to be completely protected during this entire, or you can have the insurance that during this entire transaction, I've got an entire team of eyes watching this transaction and make sure that everything is handled. We also have a buyer concierge program. So if you need any mover recommendations, boxes, any of that, we coordinate all of this for you. You can build this out to make sure that when you display it, these people are going to be like, how could I possibly ever work with anyone else? And number 2, when you go to get your buyer agency agreement signed, they're going to think it's a no-brainer, an absolute no-brainer. Instead of us being nervous, chattering or biting our nails at the end going, my brokerage also requires that you sign this agreement because I need to make sure that I get paid. That's not what we want. We want to make sure that we are absolutely guaranteed that they're going, I'd be stupid not to work with you. Okay. All right. So our solutions, now you could go on and make a lot more of these, right? Our solutions provide certainty plus security, which equal better results for you, right? So think about this. You're in a presentation. We're going to give you certainty that every property I've gone after is going to be, I'm going to find you this amazing property. Security in the fact that you can buy this and feel completely safe and protected because you're going to be protected with a home warranty program. Now, I'm going through this in a very, I want to say rapid way, but I'm trying to make sure that I save enough time to go through questions and a lot of these things. And then, of course, I want to really talk about the buyer agency part of this to make sure that you have techniques and styles to build into that. Right? So that's very important. So remember, value equals compensation, right? If your value goes up, the amount of money that you receive equally goes up. So are you providing Rolls-Royce level of value, or are you providing a Volkswagen Beetle 1942 level of value? Nothing against that. I'm sure it's a great car, right? But some of you have been doing this in a way, and including us for a long time, where we were just getting kind of, yeah, I do this, I do that. The buyer works with me. I go and put in multiple offers, and I hope that this whole thing pans out. So your value determines your compensation, right? So let's pause here for a second before I go into the next step, which is now that you're packaging this. So in the chat box, I asked you earlier, and I don't know if you had the chance to do this, to write down some of the items that you would include in your value package, or maybe that you're already doing. So maybe I missed them, or Anna, you can help me. I kind of, I know there's 64 comments now already, and I kind of watched them roll. But what is something you do that you provide to buyers or that you would like to start doing? Put it in the chat box now. What do you got? Timeline for the buyers on when to expect certain things to happen. I love that, Jessica. Yeah, absolutely, right? So in your presentation, you have the timeline. We definitely have that in our Buy with Confidence. It goes, this is how all of this works. And again, education on the process. I love that. What else? Credit program. Okay, credit program. So speak to that. I'm not familiar with what that is. Is it Kiera?
Yes. Hey, good afternoon. I'm here in
Hey,
Atlanta.
welcome.
So a
Oh,
lot, hey, thank you. A lot of times, for your first time home buyers, sometimes they may not be able to meet that criteria for the credit requirement, and they may need a 2 months or 3 months to get that score in order to be able to buy that home. They'll have the financial part and everything else, they're just lacking on the credit side. So if I can have a program to assure them that, hey, we have in-house people that can get your score where it needs to get to in order for you to become a homeowner, or even for sellers, well, even for the current homeowners that might want to refinance or buy a new home. Everybody goes through that trial of maybe their credit score not being able to again meet that threshold. So just having something to assure them that there's something in place when they're struggling with their credit.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Yeah. So this is what I'm talking about. Great. Again, every piece of this is being creative on what can you bring to the table to help solve some of these issues. Now, that was an amazing one. And Anna told me that, and I don't know if this is going to work, but I've been wanting to do it for a while. Did it work?
Yeah, we
All
hear the
right.
clapping.
I'm having, oh, sorry. All right, I'll stop. All right. I just wanted to make sure that worked. That was a good one. I love it. So we like to have fun here on our classes, but that's what we do. First-time homebuyer kit, right? Victoria, I love that, right? So a first-time homebuyer kit, making sure that when they move in, and Victoria, you're more than welcome to come off mute, but I'm assuming that includes like tape and packaging stuff. Is that what you're kind of talking about? Like, what does a first-time homebuyer kit mean? I don't know if she's in a place to talk, but we'll see. All right.
Yes.
Well, we'll get back to her. Oh, is she there?
Yes.
Yeah. What's a first-time homebuyer kit?
Oh, the process from the start, pre-qualification and all that
Gotcha.
title company.
I love it. Thank you. Excellent. Very good. Perfect. I will give you my second favorite one. That's the last I'll do. That's the last one. I had to do it though. It just makes me laugh. All right. And then I provide a customer service plan. I love that, Shannon. Credit program. Perfect. All right. So let's think of let's get creative here, right? I know amazing professionals that provide a complimentary moving truck, right? As part of their buyer program. So when you buy with us, and they have their, their big face on the truck and they're like, yeah, and it's like, whatever. Think about if you could lease a moving truck, paint your entire, or, wrap that sucker with all of your logos and advertising. Now, you can Google this. There's a whole way to do it to make sure you're protected and insurance and utilize this, but thousands of agents across the country do it. It's a complete write-off, right? Well, again, check with your accountant. Don't be like, Brendan told me this free. I'm not an accountant. I don't claim to be one, right? But think about how cool that is that you could be like, look, especially if you're in a high density urban area, right? Be like, again, I have this moving truck. You can utilize it. It's completely complimentary. Boom. You could give a credit for movers. There's a lot of moving companies that'll work with you that you can provide, to say credit, a coupon that they provide when you utilize their service.
You could also
But once
use that coupon for a cleaning service as well, right? Because how
Yes.
often do you move into a new house and they said it was quote unquote professionally cleaned and it's absolutely disgusting? You can provide that cleaning coupon as well.
I love that. Yeah, yeah. Voucher, coupon, certificate. Yeah, I love all of these words. But yeah, I think cleaners is a huge one, right? So as soon as you move in, you're gonna have a lot of things going on. I'm gonna have your home professionally cleaned after the first 30 days for you guys. You're gonna love it. And then that cleaner will give you a discount because normally they're gonna do such a great job that the person would want to continue utilizing them if it's the right area and the right price and all that fun stuff, right? Opening gift, playing on the closing gift packet. I love that. So with their pre-qualification letter, notebook, and pen to keep notes, business cards. Yes, I love that. Was that Brittany? Yeah, Brittany, that's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I know people that have this kit that they provide where it has custom logoed moving tape, right? So that you get tape. They even will give you, they'll drop off at your house a number of boxes, but now your logo is on all of the packaging tape. So when they go to box up their house, the buyers start moving, of course, all of that tape is going to also stay around because they're going to leave stuff in the garage with your logo always constantly reminding them of you, right? So think about the problems that you want to solve. Think about the program you want to build. And then the third is, how are you going to bring it to life and make it pizzazz? And again, now, if you don't have a talented graphic designer, you don't have a Anna or an Anna McKeel or someone that's brilliant at putting all this kind of stuff together, you can go to Fiverr very inexpensively and have someone create all of this for you. Pretty soon with AI, you're going to be able to talk into this thing and be like, I want this image, this image, this image. And that's a whole nother class we're going to teach you on, right? That can do a lot of this stuff. But some of you are still meeting with buyers at a coffee shop with a package that just is the usual, right? I do this, that, and this. I take you through the buyer process. I help get you pre-qualified. Are you ready to go look at houses? That's level one, right? And then that's why we get sometimes level one compensation.
Hey,
Oh,
Brendan.
housewarming. Yeah, I love that. Go ahead, Anna.
Sorry, I was just going to jump in. I'm getting a couple of questions on, so how are we leveraging the home warranty on the buy side? How much does it cost and how are we justifying it? Sure, in our commission when we negotiate it, but like, what's the bigger play that we run with our home warranty company?
Yeah, so, well, the biggest play is I'm trying to remove any objection for a buyer moving forward to make an offer. So for me, the buyer home warranty program that I provide, it makes it so much easier because when I'm working with that buyer, now they have different levels. They have a 400, a 600, a $900 one. It depends on which one you want to, what you want to provide and be compensated for. But for me, the reason, even if I don't get it back in the compensation, I leverage it as such a tool with the buyer because they see the problem. They're like, yeah, we like that one, Brennan, but man, it seems like there's a lot of stuff that's gonna need to be addressed with that. That refrigerator looked like it's on its last leg. The stove was kind of sketch, right? Like, I don't even know if that hot water heater can make hot water. And I'm going, don't worry, you guys are completely covered whether the seller is going to address any of these items or not. And you're going to be covered for up to a 12-month period. So I love utilizing it for that. The second piece is think about that first year. It's Murphy's Law, something breaks. Usually you're going to get this call from your buyer being like, Brennan, I can't believe it, man. We just moved in a week and the stove busted. Can you call the agent? They knew about this, those scum suckers, right? And they knew that this thing was old and that they were going to jip us on it. And you're going, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to deal with all of this crap stuff today, right? No, right? You have this warm blanket that just leave me alone. Not leave me alone, but you're good. You're good. If the home I'd rather already offers this program, remember, you don't pay for anything. I love that question until the day they close. So if the seller's going to provide it, you're off the hook. Awesome, right? That's a great question. Yeah, don't even worry about it. You're good. That's perfect. Do we offer a menu of services? Is a great question in there. So by menu of services, so again, meaning that on the list side, right, we've got this package, this package, this package, and for these packages, you receive X. No. My minimum goal is to have 3.5% minimum commission or compensation for my services on the buyer program that I offer. I know other agents, top agents across the country that exactly, you're correct, that I think that was Matt, that offers tiered level services. And they're very successful with it, but no, we do not in our program. Anna, what else? And then I'll jump into the rest here, and then we'll save some time at the end for closing, because now we're going to get into the fun stuff, which is buyer agency agreements.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a perfect transition. I think a lot of people are curious to know, okay, now I have this wonderful, amazing value package. How do I make sure I get paid? Right. So it's a perfect transition as we move into the next section.
Yep. And if we can just make sure, we'll try to, if I missed any of your questions, don't worry, we'll definitely get back to them. And then if we don't, we'll address them after the fact and make sure we get a follow-up out to you. No problem whatsoever. All right. So let's jump so we make sure we get through it. So what is the structure of your buyer program, right? So of course you want to establish what problems you're going to solve, create a powerful program to solve them, get paid what you're worth, and then secure your buyer agency agreement. So let's talk about this. Right, securing your buyer agency agreement. Right, this is where some of us get a little nervous. I would be the first to attest that I've worked with plenty of buyers where I was just like, I'm cool. I'm not doing that. I'm fine. And I got plenty of times I got burned, and I regret it. I wish I would have always done it the right way. So I want to make sure that everyone feels confident in doing this the right way, especially because I want to be very honest about this. We're going to start seeing more and more sellers and MLSs offering zero compensation out to the buy side. That's just the reality of it. And I'm sorry about that for a lot of the amazing agents that provide so much value, and we're rarely betting on and being compensated by the seller. We're going to have to switch gears a lot and make sure that we're very skilled at making sure that the buyer would be willing to pay our compensation no matter what happens. Now, I'm going to go through this, and I want to be very clear. I am not a managing broker. I am not an attorney. I am not any of these things. My goal for today's session is just to talk about styles, strategies, and techniques to make sure that you're protected. I know every state is different. I know everything is weird. I understand all of that. The target here, though, is to make sure you have your compensation protected because of the value and list of services that you provide. Now, I don't have enough time in this session to go through, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? And if my buyer gets hit by an asteroid and they stand on one foot and cover one eye, and I can't do all of those questions. There's going to be a million different scenarios. I will take some questions that I can hopefully help with, but always make sure you're checking with your managing broker, check with what you're trying to do, but we got to build the package. Okay. So of course you all know this, right? We're going to establish the listing period. Now, more time equals more security. I know that sounds like common sense, but sometimes I see wonderful agents that are getting stuck in 30, 60, 90-day agreements, right? If I'm working in an agency agreement, and I know the one on here, I used it as an example, only shows 90 days, I'm doing a 12-month agency agreement minimum, right? I want to make sure I'm putting all this effort in. If I'm going to be putting the effort in, that I'm going to be protected long after, well, not long after, well during this entire process. I just had one of our amazing partners in our organization, and I'm going to tell this story because it broke my heart. He was working with a buyer actually in my neighborhood, and went under contract on a property, a new build with his buyer for, I want to say 2.7 million, right? $2.7 million buyer, new construction, custom built. During the course of this transaction, the buyer building cost went up. And because the building cost went up so much during this period of time, they went back to the buyer and our agent partner and said, the house is going to be $500,000 more. And if you don't like that, you can sue us. Think about that. They're under contract, new construction, but the seller just comes back and goes, it's 500 grand more or sue us. And and I apologize to my partner. I will not say his name, but again, with this process, during this, because of the time period, it took almost a year and a half with lawyers involved in all of this. During this period, his buyer agency agreement expired. They ended up getting in the legal process, the seller to be able to actually, the builder, to sell it to him for what they agreed to. The seller comes back and says, yeah, but we're not offering compensation anymore because that expired with our agent. The buyer goes, well, our buyer agency agreement expired, so we're not paying you. And $2.7 million property closes and our agent partner gets nothing. That's a bad day. You don't want that day, okay? So put as much time on here as possible, right? Do you have a recommended protection day? I've always written 180. No, I go 12 months minimum, 12 months minimum. I hope that's what you're asking. And I'll come back to questions. So the next thing, of course, yours is going to look different than ours. This is just a sample, right? Define your compensation value and your brokerage service fee. So there's two things in here that I always get a lot of heat for, not in a like a legal way, but agents in their mindsets going, well, I don't feel like I should charge a brokerage service fee or a transaction fee okay, I get it. Do you, right? I'm going to explain how much income you're leaving off the table, and it's not because you just don't have the mindset around it correctly, right? But we'll talk about both. So on your success fee, right? Remember, when you're writing this into your buyer agencies, again, all things are different. You can put whatever amount that you want to put in here. There is never been in the history of the world a standard, an average, well, my market will only do this amount. That's crazy. That's all nuts. You could put 4%. You could put a flat fee. You can put whatever it is that you want for the value that you're going to provide. I've seen different partners structure this where they go, I'm going to be paid by the seller. And in addition, I'm also going to receive this additional compensation because I'm providing this, and this. That's totally fine. What we're scared about a lot of times is explaining this to our customer or to our client because we're not used to doing it, because we're just always accustomed to just going, yeah, we'll see what I get paid and fingers crossed. Right? I hope this is the wake-up call in this session that you've got to think a lot different. A lot different. That's great English. You got to think a lot different, right? We're going to have to start thinking differently as we move forward to make sure that you get paid what you're worth. That's all I want to see. Nothing would make me happier to make sure you're getting paid what you're worth. Okay? Then in most of us, I do want to talk about the brokerage service fee. Right? So transaction fee, you can write it in however you want. Again, this is a basic sample, $5.99 transaction fee. What the heck is that? Your buyer goes, wait a second, what's that for? You have to get very good at determining what you do for this additional compensation. Now, you've heard everything under the sun from I store your files from my brokerage for 5 years, it's required, or whatever. I'm going to guarantee the lifetime of this transaction after we close. So if any questions come up, John, any problems come up, Susie, anything comes up in the, after we close, and I always tell this story, right? After we just closed a property I had the other day, my buyer moved into a home and the property had some acreage on it. The next day they wake up, there's 50 cows on their land. My buyer's freaking out, going, Brendan, what the heck are these cows doing on my property? And I go, I don't know. That's why you can call me though, because you're protected with my brokerage service fee. I'm happily going to sort this out for you. So I have to make about 15 calls, figure out where the freaking cows came from, get the cows removed. That's what my brokerage service fee is for. My compensation or my success fee is for me getting you into the greatest home, not greatest home on earth, the greatest home on earth, getting you into an amazing property, right? So think about this, do the math. If you sell 10 homes a year and you have a $600 brokerage service transaction fee, that's an additional $6,000 to your bottom line, right? That's for some of us in a market, that's an entire transaction. Okay. Now, when you're like our team and we're going to do, upwards of 450, 500 transactions, woo! So you've got to make sure that you're practiced in this value and don't get Yellowstone bias. I love that. Completely. That's great, Lily. Yeah, but like it's true. Think about how many things you do after the transaction closes to service it. Okay. Spend more time practicing your presentation and less time thinking about, is it the right number or not? I was at a conference about a year ago. A gentleman charges $1,500 brokerage service fee for every transaction. He goes, I get it 9 out of 10 times. $1,500. At one point, I was nervous doing $199, right? So decide what you're going to put into that value. Remember, you want to work smarter, not harder. You want to provide value and get paid for that value. My goal is not to have to sell 40 houses. I'd rather sell 25 houses and make the money I would make selling 40 so I can spend more time making fun presentations like this to share with all of you. Right? Think about it. All right? So let's recap here for a second. Number one, establish the problems. We talked about that. Create a powerful program. Get paid what you're worth, and then secure your buyer agency agreement. All right? So in our model, and I'm going to talk about our model here for a second, we have 6 components that we focus on every single day, every single week to make sure that you're building a great business. Today's presentation happens to be regards to buyers. And you can tell we just barely scratched the surface. Now, in our program, when we go deep into buyers, we have all kind of techniques. How to get the buyer to find the right home on one trip. How to make sure that a buyer writes an offer in the property during that first tour. How to set the stage and standard. How to go into these deep dives. Oh my gosh, next week in our, what we call it our Pulse program, we have a technique that, and again, I don't come up with a lot of these. I get it from the top agents across the country because I am weirdly passionate about finding out all of these pro tips. We have a technique that's in our program next Tuesday that is so brilliant that will get you so many more buyers wanting to work with you, if that's what you want, right? And if you don't, refer them to someone else and get a referral fee, right? That it'll just blow your mind. So then, of course, to be a great business, we know that we have to be masters in relationship management. And I always talk about this, especially when we're working with buyers. The average, I want you to write this down. The average buyer lead takes 550 days on average to convert. Do you have a 550-day buyer relationship process? Now, some buyers are going to want to start this week. Some buyers, we heard, like, might have some credit issues, might not be relocating here, might need to wait for something, a retirement or a pension to happen. We meet these leads and we go, oh, these leads suck. This buyer's not ready to buy something right now. You throw away the lead, then you call it, then you get blow on business, and you call it a year later and you're like, oh, they already bought with someone. I'm such an idiot. So what's your relationship management process look like? And then, of course, lead generation, right? We have that component. We got to make sure we're dialed in. Are we receiving enough leads on a consistent basis to build the business that we want, so we don't go through this roller coaster up and down? We don't want that. And then my favorite, I tell people to tattoo this on your forearm: leverage. Leverage. Do I have the leverage systems built around me, whether that's tech or people, that are making my life better, faster, smarter, easier, so I can do more of the things that I love and support the charities I care about, make more money, do all of the things that I want? Then, of course, commitments. I'm just going to hit on this for just a moment. Commitments is understanding your goals, your vision, you're dialed in, and you can see it so clearly, you can taste it. You know that every single day when you do your formula, the success is going to happen. You know exactly what you want out of what we call the 4 quadrants, which is career, money, health, and your relationships, to the point where you can't stop thinking about it. And then lastly, my favorite category on earth, wonderful sellers, right? Delivering powerful selling programs that we know work, that deliver high levels of results. So if any of that sounds like things that you would need to work on or possibly improve on, I am here to help. We are here to help. So we've launched with our wonderful partners at KW, Keller Williams Maps Coaching, our Pulse program. We already have over 100 amazing, talented professionals in our Pulse Nation. If you're looking at something to join us with doing this, first of all, individual user, $99 per month. Again, you probably spend more than that on Starbucks in a month, but that's fine. And then second, if you're at a brokerage or market center, you can get them to get an unlimited subscription, so you don't have to pay. For $995 a month, they can have the entire brokerage there to support you. So if you're wanting to take the game to the next level, take a deep dive into all of this, would love to have you join us in the Pulse Nation. I can probably put my head behind the fireworks. Oh, this way. Pew! Right? We can have fun with it. And then lastly, you've got me for 7 minutes. Anna, let's fire away some of these questions, because boy, this is a hot topic these days, and I'm sure we've got some nuggets in here. What can I help with?
It really is. So we've got 3 questions, and I think one of them, it's worth having a conversation about when we talk about the inventory creation process, right? Oftentimes, we talked about it earlier this week. What's the difference between a tactic and a strategy? And our process is a strategy more than it is a tactic. There's not one thing on that list that's the magic bullet that gets a conversation going with a seller, right? To get that buyer in. It's a progression of multiple things happening at once. So let's talk about the only way that's successful is by doing multiple things and really living inside your superpower. So if you're a graphic design wizard, go with the postcard, right? If you're good in front of people and always go, I'm really good in front of people, then go door knock, right? Make that the primary, and then create additional check downs, whether it's with phone calls, because you're okay, you're fearless on the phone and you're willing to follow up with those people. It's not about the one thing you do. It's about the drip that you're willing to put in place to have a conversation the first time, the second time, the third time, because oftentimes, right, Bennett, we get in our head and we go, oh no, that didn't work. Now I feel some kind of way about myself, and now I don't want to do that again, when really that could be your entire lead generation strategy, just creating inventory for your buyers.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Anna, you're exactly right. I think the biggest thing here is sometimes we're working with a buyer, and it blows my mind. I look at a buyer as a listing creation tool. I know that sounds weird and creepy, but I'm like, I know, usually I'll do a class and I'm like, how many people are working with a buyer? And they're like, all raise their hands. And I'm like, oh yeah. And I go, how many of you are leveraging them to get listings? And they all go, huh? And I'm like, what? Yeah, want. Oh, you want to do a sound effect? I won't do it, but I could do it if I wanted to. So that's the thing, right? Every buyer should be producing you 2 listings because you have this beautiful tool to leverage in the market. And what else?
Yeah, so let's just kind of talk through, how do you have a conversation with a buyer, and how do you explain why a buyer agency agreement needs to be 12 months? Walk us through
Okay,
that conversation.
yeah. So why does a buyer agency agreement need to be 12 months? So to become one of the greatest sales professionals on earth, you have to remember that sales is the art of storytelling. Write that down. Sales is the art of storytelling. So whether you have to create a story, or you can always do this. Well, the reason it's 12 months is one of my best friends in the business, this just happened to them. And you tell a story, right, that goes, I want to make sure that you're protected during this entire process. I'm going to give you my heart and soul. I'm going to be actively working every single day. But things in life happen. So, John and David, if for all of a sudden something comes up in your life and the 2 of you don't feel like you want to take a few months off from showing houses, maybe plans change, maybe one of your job changes, I just want to make sure that, again, for all of the efforts that I put into this, that again, you're protected and I'm protected. So when a property comes up 5, 8, 9, 10 months down the line, or I show you any property, it might be because again, I'm going to be finding you a lot of off-market properties. I don't think you guys would ever feel comfortable wanting to live with yourself with, what if I showed you a property for a for sale by owner, and then all of a sudden that for sale by owner reached out to you 6 months from now and said, hey, why don't you come and buy my house? I'll drop the price and cut out the agent. And if I do that, would you be willing to buy it? Now, I don't ever want you to be in that position to feel that level of discomfort. And I know that's not who you guys are, right? Is that fair? That's not who you are, correct? Of course it's not. So let's do the right thing, and let's make sure that we're in a relationship together that's a win-win for both of us. Shut up sign here. I'm just kidding. I don't do the shut up part. I used to. Just kidding. That's a joke. Did that help, Anna?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And let's actually go to the audience. I know our friend Kara has a question. Kara, why don't you hop off mute?
Yes. So, Brandon, do you ever recommend that we ask for our commission from the buyer to be factored into the closing costs?
The buyer to be factored into the closing cost. Yes.
Our
So
commission.
oh yeah, no, yeah, I completely understand. Yeah. So, but in the so a number of things. I've been working deep with my longtime lender friend Annie Lemon, and trying to work through how they're thinking the industry is going to change. So the answer is basically what I think you're asking is, if I'm working with a buyer, can I factor the compensation in as a closing cost into the deal, into the loan? The answer is, it depends. I've gotten about 10 different answers on how to structure this. It would all depend on that buyer's lending bandwidth, if that's the right way of saying it, guidelines that they're able to do. You can have of course, we know a couple of ways to do this. Number one, seller can pay the compensation. Number one, buyer can flat out just pay cash out to do the compensation to you as part of the deal. Third is, can you work it in as a credit into the loan, if you will, a closing cost? Sorry, that's what I was looking for. Closing cost. It would just depend on the threshold that the lender would allow. So the answer is, I hope that answers your question. The answer is yes, ish. It depends.
Yes, thank
And
you.
if I'm wrong,
Thank you.
yeah, no problem. Yeah. Again, best questions. My favorite thing, and she brought up a really great point here, get with your lender or a talented lender and ask them every single question you possibly can about your compensation. Can this work? Could this work? If I did this, if I'm working, the challenge that we're running into, and this is a big problem across the country, is, and especially I'm a veteran, right, a United States Army infantry veteran. If you're working with a VA buyer and they're wanting to do a zero down purchase, and the seller's not offering compensation, what do you do? Right? And that sucks, right? These people served our great nation, and now they're having a piece of the inventory removed from their ability. And so those are things that are going to be coming up here, that are going to be very interesting on how these problems are going to be solved, because they didn't have to be in the past. So your relationship with your lender has to be more solid than it's ever been right now, so we can navigate these waters. Anna, and I know we're almost out of time. I'll stay on for just a few more minutes if anyone does, but if you have to leave because you have another meeting, again, thank you, and honor to spend this hour with you. Always a lot of fun. Hopefully you enjoyed it. We're going to try to bring the best game in the business to these presentations, so you don't have to just sit there and listen to real estate stuff. But thank you guys for coming, and I'll stay on for just a few more minutes and answer any other questions, Anna.
Yeah, I think you really kind of addressed, we had a couple pop in, like if their budget is 500,000, but they find a home for 475, can you include your commission spread in the loan? So you kind of talking through it with Kara, I think provided a lot of insight and value into those questions that were coming into the chat box. Folks, like I said, and like Brendan said, we're going to be sticking around for a couple more minutes. So if you have questions, don't hesitate, raise your hand, come off mute, pop it in the chat box. And we look forward to connecting with you regarding the Pulse coaching program and seeing if it's a good fit for your business or your brokerage team or market center.
Love it. Yeah. So yeah, you can raise your hand. Any other questions or about anything, or we'll go to lunch and have a lovely day. I hope we didn't miss anything. I'm fine either way.
May I ask you for clarification real quick, Brendan?
Oh, please, absolutely, of course.
First and foremost, hello.
Hello. Can you unpin me? And I can't see who's speaking. I apologize. There we go. Thank you very much.
So my question about the protection period, day amount. Say, I always write my agency agreements for 12 months as well. Say we decide to part ways after however long, 12 months, but I'm still protected for 180 days, or they let me go, they want to go back and purchase that property. How do you and your organization protect your agents for something like that happening?
Yeah, Ernie, and Ernie's exactly right? So you also have another clause in Talk to Your Managing Broker of adding that additional verbiage in that says, even after our agreement expires, if I was the procurer of showing you this property and you decide to go back and purchase it, I am still due compensation. And I actually lived this. This happened to me firsthand, Ernie, and thank goodness I did have that clause in there because, again, it was a $900,000 property. I was the procuring cause. The agreement expired. Then they started working with another agent. She actually went under contract with them on the property, and they had to pay me. She didn't get paid. So yeah, without that, I would have been screwed. So yeah, it's critically important. Absolutely. Yeah, this is a very touchy stuff. Yeah, Greg, you are correct. I am not, as I've said before, a managing broker. I do not play one on TV, and I probably, whatever I tell you is make sure you check with someone every single time. But yeah, it's a great question. What else? Anything else? Or are we all set? All right, I think we're good. Well, everyone, Ernie, have a great day. Everyone, thank you for joining us from across the country, and we will see you next month in our free monthly webinar. And of course, if Pulse is the right fit for you, we'll see you on Pulse Nation starting next week. All right, see you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.